start. The next presentation will be by Peter Lee, our Executive Director for the Georgia Gov Interactive Department, and he will be unveiling our new website platform.
Thank you. I get to do the fun part, right? Is this why everybody came? Yes. Yeah, I met someone in the hall a little earlier. Are you enjoying yourself today? He said, yes, when we get to see the car. So the next 3 presentations, we're gonna talk about the car. We're gonna show you what the car looks like. We're gonna take you for a test drive, and then we're gonna tell you how you can get in this wonderful car for a very, very low price, which is nothing, right? Back in the summer, I guess fall, when we first started talking with Phase 2 in contract negotiations, that's always a very tense time, and we barely knew these people, and so we were trying to be very conservative and talking about the data migration and saying, well, we really don't need any kind of new designs. We just want to migrate the content. That's all we're worried about, is getting it out of Vignette, getting it into Drupal. And Phase 2 just kind of looked at us and said, well, I think it'd be easier if we just went ahead and did new designs. What do you think? We said, okay, sure, new designs. So we got it in writing, which is always good. And so probably something you already know, no surprise to you now, redesigns for everyone. Yay! So it was kind of like getting a $500 Apple iTunes gift card. We really didn't know what we wanted to do with this. We were like, wow, we can do a redesign. We haven't had a redesign for some agencies probably in 8-10 years maybe. So we wanted something clean, we wanted something fresh, we wanted something modern. But there were a couple of things that we were concerned about. And it's this idea that I call consistency versus individuality, where you want to try to get across a common user experience among state government. And for people to know that when they're on your website that they're part of the state of Georgia. But yet, your commissioners know that they want their own brand, their own look and feel, they have their own ideas of colors and fonts, etc., right? So there has to be some sort of balance there, where we have to try to figure out how can we do that common user experience while still trying to maintain that individuality. Because when you go to state government right now, when you go to a lot of the websites, some of them look really good. But there's no real unifying theme to them. There's lots and lots of different ones. I think we've probably got somewhere in excess of 200 different websites. Some of them have the Georgia peach, some of them don't. Some of them have Georgia.gov, some of them don't. Some of them are blue, some of them are orange. Sound like a Dr. Seuss book. But they're all over the place in terms of design. Even the Georgia.gov ones, we have probably 15, 20 different designs that are covering the 65 websites that we host and take care of. So we want to try to find something that will show everybody, yes, this is a state of Georgia website, and you can be trusted, you can be assured that the information you get is good. But sometimes you can go a little bit too far in the other direction. Take, for example, Emory University. Now, they've done a very good job of showing that unifying thing. Yes, you're definitely on an Emory University website. All 4 of these websites, definitely Emory. But you ever play those games on the newspaper where you try to find what's different in this picture? Somebody's wearing a red hat, somebody's wearing a yellow hat in this one. That's kind of what I was doing when I looked at these websites. You've got Emory University on each one of these, but no, wait, right up here it's Emory Healthcare, not Emory University. Here, no, there's nothing underneath that says Winship Cancer Institute. They all have the big picture here, they all have the blue, they all have the gold horizontal nav. And so you're really not sure what website you're on sometimes. You have to take a very close look. So this may be going a little too far in the other direction. And I was sitting in your seat probably 6 or 7 years ago when I had to control a website for a state agency. I did not want to be told what my website was going to look like. If there was going to be one look to rule them all, I said no. We got to have some sort of differentiation. So we talked to the Department of Economic Development, who is in charge of the Georgia brand, and asked them for some help. how can we start coming up with these unifying themes? They had a color palette, which you all are probably very well aware of, that you see this peach pretty much everywhere now. You see them on some websites. If you've ever noticed a film that was shot in Georgia, right at the end of the credits, they'll have this peach. It's becoming ubiquitous pretty much around Georgia. So we asked them, what kind of colors can we use? So at first, this is what we had to deal with. We've got 65 different websites. We've got 5 different colors. We needed a little bit more flexibility there. We needed a little bit more options. So we asked economic development if they could somehow expand their color palette to adapt to that. They said sure. They worked with us. We're very, very lucky to have some of their expertise in-house for designs. And so they expanded it a little bit. So we had more to work with. So we said, this is great. Fantastic. There's one color missing, though. What?
Red.
Red! Red's in the flag. The Georgia flag, the United States flag. You can't have a governor's website without red. You can't have veterans' websites without red. You got to have that. So we asked them one more time if they could tweak it just a little bit. So, yay. Red and white. We've got the red, white, and blue now. So we felt pretty comfortable with this. We felt like one thing that we could use as a unifying theme would be color. Because styles really do convey meaning. If you think about it, a lot of what your website can say depends not just on the content, but on the colors, on the fonts, on the type of photos you use, the textures, the buttons. It can come across one way if you use one type of font, and one way if you use another. Anybody ever heard of the Comic Sans project? A couple of people. Just Google it when you get a chance. It's a website dedicated to transforming logos into Comic Sans to see what they would look like. Say, for instance, NASA. Rocket scientists hard at work. What would happen if their logo was in Comic Sans? It just doesn't come across as being very authoritative. So fonts can say a lot, colors can say a lot, and we have to be careful about some of the things that we use to try to get across the right message. So we were very lucky within phase 2 to have a designer named Samantha Warren who came up with a really neat concept called style tiles. If you've ever done any interior decorating or seen any of those This Old House shows, some of them on TLC, you'll notice somebody coming in with a big piece of poster board and have a lot of paint samples, carpet fabrics, fabrics for curtains, and they'll show you exactly what a room will look like. And you can actually get across several different messages for the room based on what you get. If you want your room to look more southwestern, or if you want it to look more Mediterranean, you can choose different paints, different types of textures to get that feeling across. And Samantha Warren actually took this to the next level and applied it to websites. So I'll give you a little bit of hint. This was our first iterative process, the first part in this process about coming up with these designs. So these style tiles are trays, visual trays that you can actually see that show these colors and textures that I was talking about, the buttons, the different types of fonts that you would use on a certain website. It's not really a literal translation of what the website's going to look like. So the things that you're going to see coming up aren't what you would normally see in terms of a design comp. These are just treatments of what we might be able to apply in terms of a CSS, a cascading style sheet, and what types of things we want to get across. It establishes a common visual language among the client, the customers, the users, and whoever's doing the design work. So we can sort of get a good handle on what we want to do before we actually start designing the websites. So in terms of getting the point across, getting the right tone, getting the right type of meaning to our users, we looked across the enterprise and said, well, what types of agencies do we have? Obviously, if you're public safety, you're going to be doing different things than you would be, say, if you're with the Department of Community Health. So we came up with really 4 types that we wanted to base our style sheets on. First, of course, one reason we got the red, white, and blue, right? Elected officials. A lot of patriotic themes, some things that we wanted to get across was authoritative, but friendly and trustworthy. We wanted to try to develop some styles that centered on that. Human services. A big part of our agencies are human services agencies. Department of Human Services. Community health, public health. These are agencies that help people and protect people and keep them safe and healthy. So we wanted to try to get something across that these agencies were friendly and wanting to help. Law enforcement and regulatory. These are the more official organizations. They want a state seal. They want to show that they are taking care of things. And so we wanted to develop something for them. And if your name hasn't been called yet, don't worry. We've got universal themes as well. Because when citizens interact with state government, they want a friendly tone. They want fresh, clean, modern look to all of their sites. So this is a universal type that any agency could really use, even if you're law enforcement, even if you're human services or elected officials. We felt like we could pretty much cover a good bit of the enterprise with these 4 areas. So what Phase 2 was able to do is once we identified these different types, we said, okay, can we come up with some style tiles that would show this type of feeling that you would want to get from these types of agencies? So they came up with 4 different ones, 2 of each kind. So we actually have 8 different style tiles that we'll show you right now. We should have had a drum roll or something. Right? Everybody excited? So the first one is called Classic 1. This is what we call the universal one, the last one that I talked about. Again, this is not what your website will look like. These are examples of treatments, styles that would appear on a website. So you see the blue, urban erosion and sediment control, that would be in a blue type there and in that particular font. You see the different possible colors that could be used in this particular style, the different textures, which are more elements that are grouped together, such as the search, social media, about us. They're more visual elements. And these are the type of things that we really want to try to get across, as I've already said. Friendly, modern, clean, fresh. As I said, it's been, for some people 8 or 10 years. We really need to try to become more modern. We wanted to try to clean up the look and feel of a lot of the sites as well. This is an example of some of the buttons that might be used. These are some icons that would be universal across the sites as well. And this footer down here I will talk about in just a minute. So, but you'll see those on each one. So this is Classic 1. Classic 2 is pretty much the same type of treatment, but with some different colors. These are the more traditional state of the Georgia economic development colors that you see, the greens, the oranges. So we've applied those treatments to this particular theme. But pretty much the same in terms of the type style, the headings, the buttons, just pretty much different colors. One different option on a universal theme. Here's the patriotic. We call this Patriotic 1. And as you see, very red, white, and blue. The things we wanted to try to get across with this particular style tile: authoritative, official, but very friendly. And so what Samantha Warren did at Phase 2 was take those types of things and create this. You've got somewhat more formal headlines, again the red, white, and blue, and some accent colors as well. And again, you see what the buttons would look like on something like this. I will say that you don't have to be an elected official to get this, but what we've tried to do again is try to take the different types across the enterprise and try to group them according to areas of interest. A different take on the patriotic with a little bit less blue for somebody who wants to try to mute that down, and also the red is more of a light gray background up at the top. But again, with most of the other things still intact. It's patriotic too. The human services style we call friendly. Friendly one. And as you see, it's a lot cooler, a lot more inviting. The light blues are much more apparent. And again, the same thing that Samantha did with the patriotic. She tried to soften things up with the fonts, become more people-focused, soft, friendly, happy. And friendly too, which is again a lighter version of the friendly one. Here's the official law enforcement regulatory type of agency that I talked about a little bit earlier. Capital letters always comes across as very authoritative, very official. The state seal, or not state seal, that's the GBI seal, but you put the state seal there as well. Having some, again, show people that this is very official and also trusted as well. Here are some of the adjectives we use to describe this. This sounds like one of those Cosmo questions, quizzes, where you say, what type of person are you? So look at all these adjectives and try to figure out which agency you belong to. This is, again, very dark blue. We find that a lot of our agencies like the dark blues. So we've come up with that. Yellow, some form of gold, that is also apparent on a lot of law enforcement agencies. And then again, the headlines here are also very compact, close together, and they give off a sense of authority as well. And then official two, which again makes it a little bit lighter, a light gray instead of a darker blue. So again, this is not what your website's going to look like. These are the styles that we can use for your website. So how does that translate to what your website's going to look like? If we take, for instance, the classic one, the first one that we started with, it would translate to something like this. This is an example of a design comp that we could use. This is not exactly what your website's going to look like because you may not have all this stuff on your site. I hope you don't have this stuff on your site. But what Phase 2 came up with for us is to give us an idea of how you would apply these styles, the blue headlines, the blue buttons, and how you would put it on a regular website. So you see the headlines, you see the different treatments that this is applied to. Does that make sense? Everybody understand? So depending on what your content is, we're going to move your content. Donna will talk a little bit about this later. We will move your content as is. So whatever's on your home page right now will be on your home page once it's moved. But say, for instance, if you have a flash feature right now, this could be what it would look like. If you had a main article on your site, if you have that. If you have a picture, great. If you don't have to. If you have social media, if you have a calendar, this is what some of these things may look like. And I'll zoom in on this in just a little bit and let you take a better look at what these things might be. But this is an example of taking the color swatches when you're doing your interior design. This is what a finished room may actually look like. Another example, if we're using the friendly one, the human services type treatment, may look something like this. Now, one thing that's pretty neat about this is we're basing all of this layout on what's called a grid type design. So if everybody chooses human services, does that mean everybody's website is going to look like this? No. Well, obviously your header's going to change. You're going to have your logo up there. But as I said, not everybody's going to have every single element. So some agencies may have an article here. Some may only have it show up in one column. Some may have Twitter and want to put it up here. Some may keep it down there. So there's a lot of different combinations that you can use when you use a grid-based system. Every one of these areas is a box that can be moved around. So depending again on what your website looks right now, we're going to try to match it as much as we can based on the boxes that we have right here. All right? Let's take a closer look at some of the features that you'll be able to get with the new site. I mentioned this a little bit earlier. Some of you all have seen the Flash feature. Flash is kind of going by the wayside. So we're going to be using some new technology to power this, but we'll still have the ability to rotate features, have a photo, and have up to 4 to 6 different articles that will rotate periodically, which you can use. If you don't want it to go all the way across the screen, we can have it 2 columns. We can adjust the size as needed. One of the things we tried to do with a common user experience is try to get the search all in the right place. Sometimes search on Georgia Gov sites is here, sometimes it's up there, sometimes it's in the middle. When you go to a Georgia.gov site, we want everybody to know, oh yeah, search is always up in the top right. So we've made that pretty common across the different types of things. This is a biggie. This is going to be a big change for some people, but a lot of people have asked for it. We haven't been able to do it for everyone in the past, but you'll have horizontal navigation. We're finally coming into the year 2012. When we first started with Georgia Gov, vertical navs across the left was a big thing. And we kept them and kept them and kept them. Now, I'll talk a little bit about the width of the page, but we're now able to serve up menu items in a horizontal fashion. And once you go to a second level page, you'll be able to have a secondary navigation on the left side while still keeping the top navigation intact. We're very excited about that. I just mentioned this. The old sites, I feel like a broken record. 10 years ago, all users were looking at their websites through the old 14-inch CRT monitors that had 800 by 600 resolution. And so we really were restrained to building sites that accommodated that. If we built them too wide, you'd have to scroll over to the right. That's a big usability no-no. We didn't want to do that. So for the longest time, we've been watching the analytics very closely, waiting to see what that tipping point was, where more people would be using 1024 by 768. That happened quite a while back, but there was still a stubborn number of Georgians hanging on to those 800 by 600 monitors. But we finally reached that point where it's almost obsolete, those type of monitors. In fact, the 1280 monitors are starting to really pick up and get even better resolution. But good news, we're going from 760 pixels to 960 pixels. Do your quick math. 200 extra pixels to put your content on. Especially in those second level pages, if you're used to Vignette, where you have that little bitty area in the middle where you put all of your text, you got another 200 pixels to play with. As a content person, I'm very happy with that. On down to the bottom part of this design comp, you'll see just some of the things that we'll be able to do. If you don't currently have this feature, it's going to be really easy to add in the future. Again, we're going to try to move everything as is right now, but if you want to put a calendar in the future, no Google Calendars needed anymore. You'll be able to have a module in Drupal that will do that for you. But if you currently have a calendar, event schedules can look like this. If you're on Twitter, post your latest Twitter feed. All the social media icons, we can now do that pretty easily. And this is probably what a lot of you all will be using, the featured links area. If you just got a lot of links to your most popular content, you'll be able to put that there, and you'll also be able to easily put a little teaser what that link might be. Let's see. All right, so the footer. This is part of our attempt to create that common user experience again. We want people to know that they're on an official State of Georgia website. So we have the Georgia logo down here at the bottom left, and it says, well, you can't read this, an official website of the State of Georgia. You remember, well, on the current sites, those pesky little links up at the top that say jobs, about, online services, and you click them, and they don't go to your website anymore, they go somewhere else. And you ask us, can you turn them off? And we say, no. Well, they're going away. What we have instead, we've moved a lot of that capability down here at the bottom where it's out of your way and nobody will be confused. We have your own footer that you can customize based on your needs, where you'll have the name of your agency, you'll have about, which can link to about us, about the department, whatever you want to there. The translation button, which we currently have. Contact us, and then the site. Those are pretty universal things. Actually, I'm going to back up a little bit. I want to show you something. Way up here at the top, above the search, we have what's called a utility navigation. We've talked with a couple of agencies already who are going to be moving first, and they say, well, we've got 13 items down the left-hand side, and are they going to be able to fit all the way across the horizontal navigation? And some of them have, 7 words. What are we going to do? Well, we know who you are, and we'll talk to you about that. But one really good thing that we have is this utility navigation, that you'll be able to move some of the really common elements of your navigation up to. I mentioned about us, that's what really triggered that. You can put about up there at the top right. It's something that you'll see on pretty much every single state agency website. The translate link is going to be there as well. Our analytics were showing that people weren't really clicking on the translate button, but it was because it was stuck way down there at the bottom. So we wanted to try to duplicate that up at the top, just in case somebody wanted to get the site translated to Spanish. Contact us. You can put information there for email, phone, directions, that sort of thing. And it will go to your contact us. And then the sitemap. Those are some things that may really be polluting your vertical navigation right now. You move those up, you'll have fewer items in your horizontal nav. So that's one thing that we think is going to help in terms of the decluttering that will go on when we start migrating your site. Back to the footer. We call this a fat footer, which it's kind of big, but these are more universal across the enterprise. So if there are things that people are looking for when they're on your site and they need to go back maybe to georgia.gov, maybe to see some of the more commonly requested things, they can always view that down here at the bottom. We've got links to all the elected officials. We've got links to georgia.gov, all the different agencies if they want to see all of them, the counties and cities. We're going to have a new area on georgia.gov called popular topics. So if they want to see the most commonly requested items based on search, based on our analytics, based on the number of calls to the call center, they'll be able to get that information. The obligatory privacy, security, accessibility statements are also going to be there. Alerts, Amber Alerts, wireless Amber Alerts. We'll also have links to RSS feeds there in case people want to have access to that. And then the contact, the connect georgia.gov, 1-800-GEORGIA. We'll have a link to that as well. And I think that's pretty much it. I know you all have a lot of questions. One thing I'm sure that a big question you'll probably have right now is, well, do I get to choose right now? And the answer is no, you don't have to do that right now. Donna Merritt, our project manager, is going to be up in just a little bit to talk to you about the process and when you'll need to be making some of these decisions. So don't feel like you have to, we're not going to go ask you to make a quick decision because decisions at state government level, we know take a really long time, right? You have to talk to lots of different people. So we will be in touch based on the actual migration schedule. But I will take some questions right now if you have some. We'll also be available during the break. So anybody have some? Yes?
What about the universal style tiles? You know what you're talking
The universal style tiles?
about? Yes.
About?
I didn't see them flash up there on the screen. That's what-
Oh, those were what were called the classic. The very first ones we saw were the universal style tiles, and those are the ones that that can go pretty much across the enterprise. We've made them friendly enough, but not put in a particular category, so pretty much anybody can use those. Yes.
You talked a little bit about some of the style tiles, and some of them that would, like for law enforcement, they would have like the seals and look more official and that kind of thing. And that may be a decision we don't have to make today, but is there any, will you provide us with feedback on whether they should be state seals versus agency seals versus agency logos, or will we have that choice, or do you say, well, for regulatory type sites, we want state seals here and then your agency name, or?
Yeah, there's, depending on the agency, there will be a lot of different options, because some agencies have their own seal.
And we just did a contest to do our logo over, so I just was curious about how that would go in the new thing.
And of course the header that you'll have, you'll be able to actually, you'll actually be able to put your agency's logo right here at the top. Yeah, it's got the DHS logo right now, but insert agency logo. For the law enforcement look, if you do have a seal, we can put that there. Pretty much though, the default would probably be the regular state of Georgia seal. But I know GBI has one they were interested in using. So depending on the situation, we can put a seal there, or we can just keep it.
Another question?
Yeah.
Wondering if all of the designs have been tested for accessibility, because the contrast level seems a little low in the horizontal navigation bar.
Yeah, and that's probably more due to the projectors. Phase 2 has an accessibility expert on staff who has tested all of these regarding color blindness, regarding contrast as well. And so those have all gone through. We've been very lucky, because a lot of what Phase 2 does deals with 508 accessibility at the federal level. A lot of state sites really don't have to be that stringent, but they have that capability in-house. They offered it, and they said, thank you very much. So everything that you see here has been tested quite a while. And I don't know, Eric, if you want to chime in about any of Phase 2 did.
Sure, just real quick. Our accessibility expert is fully involved with all this. She actually does the quality assurance testing for the site. So she's got her eyes on this throughout the entire process. She actually uses an objective tool to measure contrast between one color and another. And hopefully, we've got to do a couple tweaks to the design, but the whole thing.
Yeah. Would there be images and icon gallery?
There will be an icon gallery. We have, the question was, is there going to be an icon gallery and a photo gallery? And we do have, we have purchased some icons that will be available across the enterprise for all the different agencies, and we'll be able to use those as needed. Photos, that is one of the things we plan to do, is use a photo gallery that everybody will have access to. We're not quite there yet, but we will have some available, especially for the migration. If you need some photos, we'll be able to purchase those for you and go ahead and put those on the site. Any other questions? Yes, one.
How much customization are we able to make to the style sheets? we were able to go in and, change the fonts and the sizes, kind of things. And are those things that we can do within the agency or that you think has to do?
Right now, we're pretty much sticking with what we have in terms of trying to keep that common look and feel and the common user experience throughout. So we're really locking those down to begin with. Now, we will probably look at this later and see whether or not we want to try to loosen those up, because loosening them up, sometimes it's a good thing, sometimes it's a bad thing. You know, in the right hands, it can do a really good job. In the wrong hands, it can turn into a mess pretty quickly. So we're measuring that. We're talking to phase 2 to see exactly how much flexibility we can give for each agency while still keeping that overall look and feel. Yeah.
As far as our personal pictures, we're looking at getting some new pictures to update with. Should we wait till we get guidelines from you as far as the resolution we want to put on before we invest in anything like that, as far as personnel pictures and that type of thing? Or?
Not really. Not really. I mean, it's, we'll have a demo. CJ is going to be given a demo next of the actual content management system and show you how easy it is to actually put up photos, upload them, and make them appear on the site. So, yeah, right now we will try to get eventually a style guide regarding, the type of photos, what type of file extensions to use, those sort of recommendations. But for right now, go ahead, and we will be moving all the content that you have on the current site over.
This is on any customized applications, custom apps where we have a custom user experience to design, for instance, a web service-based phone. How is this?
Good question, and that's something we really want to start working on once we get everything moved over. Is how do we start integrating this? Right now, there are some of the applications, because of the limitations of the vignette, we really haven't done a lot in this area. So some people have gotten very creative in terms of finding applications that are third-party hosted, hosting them in some sort of iframe, and having it appear just within the window that way. That's probably the first step, but one good thing that we'll have for the next 5 years, we'll have phase 2 available to do a lot of custom work if there are applications that need to be built within the platform, more interactivity. They're going to be on hand to help with some of that.
Are you also talking about like applications that are hosted on separate servers?
Yeah, I'm talking about applications that we already offer that are proprietary.
What we have been doing is we have been working with some of the app dev teams and sharing our CSS files, our style files. So what they do is when they work on an application, they style it to look like a website.
Right.
So on the user perspective, it's a seamless transition into an application from a website.
Right.
So that's something
I
that
guess
needs
what
to be
I'm
put
asking
on.
is, where does the logic of business actually run? Where does it change? Where is it run? We've got certain components that run on this Java framework. Where do they live? Do they still live on this product interface with the existing server?
Correct. It would be a manual.
They coexist.
Correct.
Earlier, responsive design was mentioned. Can you give an example of how these templates with different sensors?
Yeah, Nikhil had mentioned that it's a wonderful technology, but it can be very complicated. So one thing we have asked phase 2 to do as part of the migration is a redesign of Georgia.gov. So we are sort of being the guinea pig here, and when Georgia.gov goes live, probably sometime in April, it will be responsive. So we'll have a better idea of how much work that entails at that time. We've been working on the different breakpoints as to where where it needs to be rebuilt, and so based on how difficult that is, we've got 65 different sites. We'll start looking at responsive design and do some refreshes. Right now, it was just too much of a lift to try to do 65 sites migrating and then try to make it responsive. The capability is definitely there. The thing that we'll be using for Georgia Gov is responsive, and so it's just a matter of, okay, how much lift is it going to take, and how can we start working that into the refresh schedule? Any other questions? We've all got the black shirts with Georgia Gov on them. Phase 2 back here in the corner with the royal blue shirts. So if you have questions, if you want to talk more about designs, more questions, concerns, please let us know. We'll be happy to talk. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Peter. And we will break for another 15 minutes or so, and we'll have CJ from Phase 2 come back and actually show us the platform and all the features that we have built into the